In today's lesson, we will be carrying on looking at probability, but more specifically, we'll be looking at mutually exclusive events, which is more commonly known as the OR rule. Events are mutually exclusive if they cannot happen at the same time. So, for example, I can't roll a dice and get a 4 and a 3 on the same roll. It has to be either one of them. Also, when I flip a coin, it's impossible for me to get a head and a tail at the same time. It's got to be a head or a tail. This last point here is quite important, but the sum of mutually exclusive events add up to 1. The sum of all probabilities add up to 1. So, if the 2 or more events are mutually exclusive, then the probability of either of them occurring is the sum of the probabilities of each occurring. Now that sounds very confusing, but simply put, the probability of A or B happening is the same as the probability of A plus the probability of B. Okay, so now we're going to look at our first example. And it says a bag contains balls which are either red, blue or yellow. The probability of selecting the red one is 0.3. The probability of selecting the blue one is 0.4. Part A, what is the probability of selecting a red or a blue? So don't forget, this word or, when we're dealing with probability, or means add. That's why we call it the OR rule. So the probability that it's red is 0.3. And the probability that it's blue is 0.4. So we do 0.3 plus 0.4, which gives us 0.7. So the probability of selecting a red or a blue is 0.7. Now, what is the probability of selecting a yellow? So it doesn't actually tell us what the probability, so we have to work that out. Now, going back to what we said earlier, that all mutually exclusive events add up to 1, so all probabilities add up to 1. So the probability that we pick a yellow, well, that'll be 1 take away the probability of picking a red and a blue, which we just worked out to be 0.7. So 1 take away 0.7 is 0.3. So the probability of selecting a yellow is equal to 0.3. Our next example is a GCSE past paper question, and you can see it says a spinner is labelled A, B, C and D, and the table shows a probability of the spinner landing on the different letters. So the probability of A is 0.18, the probability it lands on B 0.36, the probability it lands on C 0.12, and the probability it lands on D is 0.34. Now the question asks, what is the probability that the spinner lands on the letter C or the letter D? Don't forget, this word or means add when we're dealing with probability. So the probability of it lands on C is 0.12. And the probability that it lands on D is 0.34. And because it's asking for C or D, we add them together. So that is 0.46. So the probability that it lands on C or D is 0.46. Sindhu has a bag of different coloured counters. The colours of the counters are blue, yellow, red or orange. Sindhu picks a counter at random from her bag, and the probability that she chooses a counter of each colour is given in this table. What is the probability that she chooses a red counter? Write it down the centre table. So our answer's got to go here. It's got to be in the table. Okay. So first of all, what do we know? Well, we know the probability of blue is 0.3. We know the probability of yellow is 0.25. And we also know the probability that orange is 0.4. Now, to work out the probability is red, we need to remember one or two things. The first thing to remember is that the probabilities, they all add up to 1. So everything here needs to be 1. Now, to work out the missing probability, what we can do, we can add up the others. So we can do the probability of blue, which is 0.3, plus the probability of yellow, which is 0.25, plus the probability of the orange, is 0.4. Adding those together gives us 0.95. Now what that 0.95 means is that that's the probability of selecting a blue, or a yellow, or an orange. Now to find the probability of selecting a red, using this fact here, that they all add up to 1, we're going to do 1 take away 0.95. And 1 take away 0.95 is 0.05. So the probability of selecting a red is 0.05. Now with questions like these, it's always worth checking your answer. And a quick way you can check your answer is you can add these up and they should equal 1. So 0.3 plus 0.25 and 0.55, 0.6, add 0.4 is 1. So we know we've got the right answer. The next question says that the table below shows the probabilities of germ obtaining a yellow, green, blue with 1 spin of the spinner. Complete the table by inserting the probability that germ obtains a red with 1 spin of the spinner. Very similar to what we've just done. So again, we know that they all add up to 1. So you can make a note of that to help us, that they add up to 1. So we do the same thing that we did last time. Let's add up the probabilities that we know. So we know that the probability of yellow is 0.26. The probability that it's green is 0.24. And the probability that it's blue is 0.37. When we add those together, we end up with 0.87. So the probability that it's red will be 1 take away 0.87, which is equal to 0.13. So in the table, we could write 0.13. Part B of the question, find the probability of obtaining either a green or a blue on the same spinner, or on the spinner. So the probability of green or blue, again, don't forget this word or means add. So probability that we get a green is 0.24. Add the probability that it's blue, which is 0.37. So 0.24 plus 0.37 gives us 0.61. And that's our answer. Can you please make sure that you've copied all the notes and the examples into your big books, please? Thank you.